Lamed Aleph, Amud Aleph. On the bottom, we were talking about mortgages, whether they go retroactively, whether they are retroactively collected or not. We're going to finish that up, and then we're going to talk about the chametz that is under your couch or behind your fridge. Okay. Okay. So let's see. Lima Kitanai. So we saw a machlokas Abai and Rava about whether or not the mortgage is the security or whatever it is, the thing that the chametz that's given as a security for a loan, whether that is collected retroactively. Again, what that meant was that if I borrow chametz if I borrow money from a non-Jew and I give him my chametz to hold on to, and then after Pesach I default on my loan, was it the non-Jew's chametz? I.e., did it go retroactively, or is it my chametz and he only assumed ownership after Pesach, right? If it was his chametz all along, then it would be permitted. If it was my chametz until I defaulted on the loan, then it would be my chametz. So let me cut tonight. Okay, so maybe this machlokas between Abai and Rava. Abai and Rava again are Amoraim. They are from the Gemara period. 31a3. Lema Kitanai. First column, second, last paragraph. So maybe this is actually Machlokas Tanaim, which again, as I pointed out many times, the Gemara does not want to do, because Amoraim are not supposed to be arguing with Tanaim, and therefore no one's going to want to say that this Machlokas Tanaim, but it sure sounds like it. Why? Because the Mishnah, we have a brayso that says, a Jew lends a non-Jew money before Pesach, okay, and the non-Jew gives the Jew chametz. Again, so I lend my neighbor Bob some chametz, and I lend him money, and he gives me his chametz. Okay, so I lend a non-Jew chametz. I lend a non-Jew money, and he gives me chametz to hold on to. Okay, as a security. La'achar Pesach in over after Pesach. After Pesach, let's say he defaults on the loan, this chametz is permitted. This chametz is not asur chametz, okay? So what does it sound like, by the way? What does it sound like? It sounds like it's only from the time he defaults on the loan, right? It wasn't retroactive. If it was retroactive, I was holding on to chametz over Pesach, okay? However, Rameir says, no, you're in violation. My lab hakamiflagi. What are they arguing about? Rameir, who says that it's asur, holds like Abaye, who holds that it's retroactive. And that's why I was holding on to chametz the whole Pesach. And now I wasn't holding to non-Jews chametz, I was holding on to my chametz, because retroactively, after he defaulted on the loan, it becomes mine. Umar Savar Mikan Labahu Gove, and the Tanakamo says that it is permitted. Right, he says it's permitted, holds that it only becomes mine after he defaults on the loan, which was after Pesach. Okay, that seems to be saying that Abai and Rava are tied up in a machlokas tanaim. They're tied up in these opinions of the Tanakam and Rameir.
You're holding his chametz on Pesach?
Yeah. It's collateral. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you.
You can't own it.
That's the question. Is it mine? It's collateral, right? That's exactly the question, right? Okay, but Tisbra says the Gemara, wait a second, that can't be the explanation. Ema Seifa, because you forgot about the end of that brisa. Now we're going to quote the end of the brisa. What does the end of the brisa say? Aval nachri shilva Yisrael al chametzo. But let's say a non-Jew lends a Jew money. Okay, so now I borrow money from my neighbor and I give him chametz. La'achar Pesach divrei kol over. Everyone says that chametz that I gave him is for I'm certainly in violation. In other words, if I default on the loan, okay? Everyone agrees I'm in violation. So there's a certain inconsistency over here, right? If they're really arguing about, right, and that's what Gemara is going to spell out in a second, but the point is if they're really arguing about whether or not a loan is retroactive, or whether the collateral is owned retroactively or not, then there should be consistency, right? And yet, everyone agrees when I borrow money and I give him my chametz, everyone agrees that chametz is going to be asur. Why is that? So the Gemara says, it should be the opposite, meaning the opinion should be reversed. According to the Tanakam, who said, when the Jew was the lender, when I was the lender, I'm not in violation. Hacha over. I should be in violation over here. Lamad Amar Hasam over. According to Rameir, said that their person is in violation. Okay, because the fact that it's retroactive, hachein over. Over here, I should not be in violation because the chametz was retroactive and I gave it to the non-Jew and the non-Jew retroactively owned it. So the Gemara says, obviously we're misunderstanding the premise of this debate, and the Gemara is going to give a different explanation. Ella hachmaiskinan kigon shirhinu etzlo. It must be that rather the chametz was deposited with the lender. Okay, v'kamiflagi b'd Rabbi Yitzchak, and what they're arguing about is Rabbi Yitzchak. In other words, until now, it wasn't. First of all, we didn't focus on whether it was actually given over or not given over, but we'll see there's an actual form of giving over that's going to be problematic. Okay, let's see. Okay, so until now we've been talking about the fact that there's a mortgage, there is a piece of property which is meant as a collateral, but it isn't necessarily given over. In other words, the main point is who owns this. It's not a matter of where it is. The question is, if I default on this loan, then you get this derech Hashem. It's not a matter of where it is. The point is, if I default on this loan, Yichol, and Derech Hashem belongs to you, right? But now we're saying no. The focus over here in that brisa is that this Derech Hashem was given over. Okay, was given over, and we'll see that's significant. Why? Because Rav Yitzchak said, Rav Yitzchak says that a creditor acquires a security. Okay, this is not about retroactive ownership of collateral, but rather it's a security that he is holding on to. Shnemar ulachat tzedakah. We read a few weeks ago the words that for you it shall be deemed a charitable act. What's it referring to? Anyone know? It's referring to this. Giving back the thing. Very good. Okay, the point is like this. If let's say I lend money to a person who does not have a lot of money. Okay, so I lend money to someone who does not have a lot of money, and they give me as collateral their cloak. Okay, their cloak, their blankets. So the Torah says that every single day, at the end of the day, I have to give them their blanket back so they could sleep with it, right? And why? And the Torah says, "Ulachat tzedakah," and should be a act of charity for you. Okay? So if the Torah says it should be an act of charity for me, right? Again, I lend money to this impoverished person, right? And then they give me their blankets. So the Torah says, give them the blanket every day, and it'll be considered like charity. So if it's charity, right? Can I give charity? Can I take your baseball hat and give it to someone else's charity? Absolutely not, right? Because it's not mine.
It's not an expo's hat.
It's not an expo's hat. That's right. But it wouldn't be charity because it's not mine, right? So that by calling it tzedakah, it implies that what? That when someone gives me a security and I'm holding on to it, it becomes mine. That's Rav Yitzchak's chiddush, right? So im eina kona mashkon stuck minayin. So if I don't acquire the security, then how could it be called an act of charity? Mikal bal chov shkona mashkon. So clearly, says Rav Yitzchak, that a creditor who is holding on to the security, not just something which is designated as collateral, but when I'm holding on to it, it actually becomes mine to some extent. And therefore, Tanakama Savar, the Tanakama holds, Hani mili Yisrael mi Yisrael. Okay, so the Tanakama holds that this rule only applies when a Jew takes a security from another Jew. Because that's what the section of the Torah is talking about. Meaning, it is not so much like a physical property of how do securities work. The Torah says that when a Jew gives another Jew his blanket, then ulachati tzedakah. So the Torah is talking about two Jews. Hold on 1 second. Who's zakrina be'ulachati tzedakah? Ava Yisrael menachri lo kani. But when a Jew takes a security from a non-Jew, he doesn't acquire it. Now, logically, you'd say, what's the difference? The security is security is security. But the point is, the Torah is making a chiddush. The Torah is making a novel idea that when you hold on to security, it becomes yours, but only two Jews, because that's the case the Torah is talking about. And therefore, the Tanakhama said that when the non-Jew goes ahead and gives me his chametz, I never acquired it because the Torah never says that the security of a non-Jew belongs to a Jew. I'll come to your question in a second. Rabbi Meir savar kal v'chomer, and says no, we can make a kal v'chomer. What is that? Yisrael Yisrael kani. If a Jew is able to acquire another Jew's item, then Yisrael minachri l'koshken. Why wouldn't a Jew for sure should be able to acquire from a non-Jew? In other words, if the Torah is saying I'm going to take this object, this thing which really doesn't, this blanket, which really doesn't belong to me, the lender, and give it to me from a Jew, so for sure the Torah is going to do that from a non-Jew. Like, why would it be less? And therefore, a mayor says that when it comes to a Jew taking the chametz of a non-Jew as a mashkon, there for sure it's mine, right? And therefore, let's go back to the Reisha. The Reisha, in the first case, the Brisa, the Tanaka, so the Jew lent money to a non-Jew. The non-Jew gave chametz to the Jew, right? So the Tanakama says, okay, the chametz doesn't belong to the Jew, because it's a security which is given over, and there's no mechanism to give it over to him. And therefore, that chametz, when the non-Jew defaults on the loan, the chametz is permitted because it always belongs to the non-Jew. Rameir says, no, for sure it belongs to a Jew. If the blanket of a Jew belongs to the other Jew, so for sure the item given over belongs to the Jew from a non-Jew, and therefore that chametz was always belonging to the Jew, and therefore it's aser after Pesach. But let's get to the Seifa, and I will come to your question if it still stands. But let's say the opposite direction. Now in the Seifa, it's a non-Jew who lends a Jew money, okay, and the Jew gives over the chametz. Achar Pesach divrei over. After Pesach, everyone agrees that chametz is aser. Why? Hasam vadei nachem Yisrael lokani. Everyone, even Rameir, would agree that the Jew's chametz is not acquired by the non-Jew. In other words, again, it's a novelty in the Torah that says that the blanket now is considered like it belongs to the Jew. But it's a novelty. It doesn't really make sense. It's just, it's almost like the Torah is doing that to give you the opportunity of doing the mitzvah of giving him his blanket back. Right? It's like a little, backward, not backward, but it's a novel idea. In other words, a security that's given over really is a security. It doesn't really belong to you. But the Torah says, we want to give you this mitzvah. God says, I want to give you this mitzvah that when you have this blanket, then you're able to give it back to the person and therefore have to make it like it's yours. Okay, fine. But that's a chiddush that when a Jew acquires something. So our mayor says, that it's not only limited to when a non-Jew gives you something, but also when a non-Jew gives you something. But when a Jew gives something to a non-Jew, then the regular rules of the regular should apply. That item still belongs to the Jew, and therefore that's why the Seifa said, or the Baraisa said, that when the Jew gives chametz to the non-Jew, everyone agrees that chametz is aser because it always belonged to the Jew. Question.
You said, I apologize. You said it belongs to the lender to some extent.
Yeah, because it's not really his.
That's right. I feel like
Yeah, meaning I can't go ahead and sell it. Or if I go ahead and sell it, it would be meaningless. Okay. The point is the Torah is making it as if it's mine, so that I can get this mitzvah. Okay.
That's the point? That's why we make sure that
yeah. Oh, sorry, what?
That's the reason why it seems, I don't understand. Why is it that a Jew, to a Jew, you're for sure going to be acquiring it, for a non-Jew, you're not? It seems that there's no difference in terms of what you're doing.
Well,
why is it for sure you're going to acquire it if it...
Well, the Torah says a Jew to a Jew, you're going to acquire it, right? Gives you that opportunity. Why? Gives you opportunity to do tzedakah.
That's the
reason, and therefore it's going to be true in all cases.
So it doesn't apply with a non-Jew.
Wouldn't apply to a non-Jew, and correct.
That's the reason why.
That seems to be the main idea. Yeah. Okay. It's not 31b2. We learned in the Mishnah. Nachri shel Yisrael al chametzo. If a non-Jew lends Jew money, and the Jew gives chametz over to the non-Jew, achar Pesach mutar bana. After Pesach, it is permitted with benefits. Nihinami dir hinu etzlo. Okay. Even though the Mishnah is speaking about a case where the Jew gave the chametz as a security to the non-Jew. Okay, Amras Nachrum Yisrael Lokani. So wait a second. What happens over here? We just concluded that when a security is given over from a Jew to a non-Jew, the non-Jew does not acquire it. So why is it that this our Mishnah told us that a non-Jew who lends money to a Jew, and then the Mishnah said that the Jew gives chametz over to the non-Jew, everyone agrees after Pesach it's mutar b'hana. Right? How could that be? We just said the non-Jew does not acquire the security. And even if he gives it over to him as a security, it still doesn't work. Right? So Gemara says, Lokasha, Achshav. Our Mishnah was talking about a specific case where the borrower said, from now. He added a stipulation, I'm giving you my Derech Hashem, I'm giving you my Chametz, and I say, not just here it's a security, but if I default on the loan, it will be yours retroactively. I could do that. I could give you my items whenever I want. So we're saying, because again, if we just concluded from this last discussion that when a security is given over to a non-Jew, the non-Jew does not acquire it, so why does our Mishnah say that when I give Chametz over to a non-Jew, before Pesach, and then I default on the loan, that chametz is completely mutar b'hana. I'm allowed to benefit from it. What do you mean? We just established that the chametz, that when I give something over to a non-Jew, he does not acquire it. Right?
But they make a condition that he does acquire.
That's exactly what's happening. That's exactly what we're answering. Saying Me'achshav. When I say it's from now, then retroactively it works. That's exactly what's happening. So that's exactly the distinction being made. Okay, when he says now, from now, then when I go ahead and I go to the non-Jew and knock on his door before Pesach and I borrow money and I give him chametz as a collateral, as a security, and I say, hey, if I default on this loan, it will be yours from now. Okay, so then if I default on the loan, it was his, and therefore that chametz is going to be completely permitted. Uminat Tamer asks the Gemara, where do we see where do we see that such a distinction exists? The time is on the Brisa. Nachri Shehirin as Purani Eitzel Yisrael. If a non-Jew gives a loaf of bread with a Jew as a security for a loan, or here it's a non-Jew giving bread to a Jew as a loan, in over, the Jew does not violate the prohibition of holding on to chametz. Even though he's holding on to this bread, he's not in violation because it's security. It's a security which belongs to, which still belongs to the non-Jew. If he says it's yours over, okay, then he is in violation. Why in one case is he in violation, in one case he's not? So the idea is when he said it's yours, it's as if he said from now. That's the point. The point is we see that such a distinction exists, that I'm able to go ahead using my words and say that it should, that the security when she's depositing with you will be acquired by you retroactively, if I say so explicitly. Okay, Tanar Rabbanan. Okay, Chanus Shmamina, we see from there. So Tanar Rabbanan, now we have a halacha about chametz found in a store. Chanus Shel Yisrael umalai Shel Yisrael. Let's say you have a store which is owned by a Jew, and it's stocked with merchandise owned by a Jew. Right, those are not the same thing, which by the way is always the issue over here locally, because sometimes you have the store that's owned by one person, but the merchandise is being distributed by another person. So you have a store owned by a Jew. The property was owned by a Jew. And you have the merchandise is owned by a Jew, okay? And you have non-Jewish workers who work there. If you find chametz there after Pesach, it is prohibited in Hana, and certainly for consumption. The point is that we are assuming that it comes from the owner or from the merchandise itself, and not from the workers. We're going to assume the workers are not leaving things around. Rather, if you find chametz there after Pesach, you have to assume it came from the owner of the building or from the person who owns the merchandise, not from the workers, right? Chanush shel nachri, u'malai shel nachri. Let's say you have the opposite. It's a store owned by a non-Jew, and the produce is owned, merchandise is owned by a non-Jew. Upali Yisrael nechnasim yotzim sham, and l'sham, and you have Jewish laborers coming in and out to work there. Chametz during Pesach, chametz sham achar Pesach much b'achila, and the chametz that's found there after Pesach is permitted for consumption, and certainly for benefits. Okay, bottom line is we're going to assume it's the owner of the merchandise, owner of the store / owner of the merchandise whose items that are found there, and therefore the chametz that's found there, you have to ask yourself, is it owned by a non-Jew or the merchandise owned by a Jew? Therefore, if that's the case, the chametz that's found there, we're going to assume it belongs to Jew, and the opposite. Okay.
Are you even allowed to work in that situation?
It's a great question. Well, we're gonna. I mean, we're talking about a case where the assumption was that there isn't, overt chametz around. Now all of a sudden after Pesach, like, oh wait, there's chametz over here. But can you work in a place with a scenario where someone who was, really stuck? They couldn't get another job, and they really, really, really needed the money, and their job was working in a not only non-kosher but a full-fledged chametz place. And the question was if they're allowed to work there. Really not simple. Really, really not simple. Mm-hmm. Fine, but
I don't expect to be in that situation, so I'll ask.
Okay.
If I need, I'll ask.
If you need, I'll ask. It's very, very not simple at all. Okay. Chametz leflam apolis. Let's say you have chametz which a ruin falls upon. Okay, so basically you have chametz which is inaccessible because there's something blocking it. So the example given is a ruin, but the truth is another example would be your fridge. Right? How easy is it to move your fridge? Not easy at all. Do things fall behind your fridge? I don't know. Depends on your fridge. Depends on your house is situated. But I don't know. Move your fridge. You'll find out. Move your oven.
Stuff's under.
Yeah, oven under. Yeah, it's a party. It's a party under there. It's a little scary sometimes. But even clean it, no matter how clean your house is. But stuff gets stuck there. Okay. Haring mavar. The Gemara says it's as if it is removed. It's not a problem. Rav Shimon Gamliel Omer. Kol she'ein hakelav yachol lechapes acharav. Rav Shimon Gamliel says no. It's not enough that it's not easily accessible, but it has to be that a dog is unable to unearth it, right? It's not enough that you can reach it. A dog who's, has a good smell, and B is going to go ahead and start moving things, that we have to make sure it's beyond that reach. If the dog could reach it, it's still going to be aser. Amar Rav Chisda says Rav Chisda that's that we said that when your chametz is under a ruin, or is behind your couch, or is behind your fridge, or is in a vent, it's not inaccessible, you also need bittul. You have to have both. You have to do bittul. Bittul is, right, that's a kol chamir v'chamir. Basically say, any chametz that's mine, I nullify it, it's not mine, I don't own it, it's considered like it's dust to me. You basically relinquish any sense of connection to it, and you make it as if it's nothing, and it's inaccessible. The two have to be together, right? So a person, you have to, so again, you do not have to move your fridge when you clean for Pesach, you don't have to move your couch when you clean for Pesach, but you do need to do bittul. You do need to say, any chametz that belongs to me is no longer mine, and then you don't have to reach it. And that is the halacha. Okay, it's interesting that he says, in his heart. Really, there's big machlokas, big discussion, because really you should have to verbalize it. But simple halacha is you have to verbalize it, but there's some discussion because this terminology, if bittul believe would actually work. If I do bittul in my heart, it would work. Okay.
It could just mean more sincerely, like you're not like, well,
could
I
be.
say it, but I don't mean
Could
it.
be, yeah. So it's a big discussion about what exactly it means. But the bottom line is we should say it aloud. Tana, kama chafishas kelev, how far could a dog reach? Shloshet tvachim, the Gemara says 3 hand breadths. Okay, basically 3 of these is how much a dog is able to reach. In other words, a dog can't reach it. Well, how deep is that? 3 of these. Amrle Rav Achab, Rav Yosef Rashi, Hadamar Shmuel, Ksaf Melam Shmir Alam Karka. Okay, so we had a halacha that said that when a person, if I give you money to hold on to, I say, please hold on to my money for me, and you have to safeguard it for me, it has to be buried in the ground. If I don't bury it in the ground, it's not good security. Okay, nowadays we'll say maybe put it in a safe. If I ask you to hold on money, you can't just go and leave it on you and say, oh, no problem, I'll be your shomer, I'll be your watch for you, and you put it on your table. That's not watching. You have to put it somewhere inaccessible. So you have to put it in the ground. Maybe in shlosh tvachim alone. So he says, do we also need 3 tvachim there? Right? When the halacha is that to hold on to money has to be buried in the ground, is it also the halacha 3 tvachim? The Gemara says no. Amalei Rashi says no. Hach mishum reicha min shlosh tvachim. With chametz, the reason you need 3 tvachim is because of smell. The dog's going to smell the chametz and then start getting it. Hasa mishum ichsurim me'inahu. But when it comes to money, the issue is not about smell. The money doesn't smell like anything probably. The issue is that we just don't want people to see it, and therefore below by shlosha. Therefore you don't need 3 tvachim. Mekama. Therefore how many do you need? Rav from Papa Misichra. Rav from Papa of Sichra said tefach. It just has to be 1 tefach deep, and that would be sufficient to be a good, shomer, a good, watchman to hold on to a person's money. Have a great day.